Joburg council members are finding themselves having to elect a mayor yet again. It will be the third in a space of 3 years. Who will take the helm this time? Will it be Cope's Colleen Makubele or Al Jamar favorite Kabelo Gwamanda or Action SA's Funzi Ngobeni? Former DA Mayor Mpopalatse is also in the running. Political analyst JJ Tabane is joining me now live from Cape Town to discuss this state of affairs in Johannesburg a little bit further. JJ, good afternoon. Welcome to today and thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Now, I mean, it's a mess. I don't know which other word I can use, JJ, because currently the council is not sitting because apparently ANC councillors cannot agree on who should be their candidate.
An absolute mess. I don't know what I would recall, but when I hosted Panyaza Lesufi, he made a meal of the fact that the ANC does not want power for itself. That's why they are putting minority parties. But a lot of people agree that that's only merely to make those mayors puppet mayors. I can tell you for sure that Tapelo Ahmad could not breathe without checking with Dada Morero, for example. I mean, I've got a lot of time for Dada, but he was not elected to be mayor, even in the recent fiasco. He was elected to be MMC of Finance. But what has tended to happen was that Tapelo could not make any decision whatsoever without cross-referencing to Dada. So the big question is, why can't the ANC simply put Dada and sort out their differences with the EFF? This is a total mess that shows that these parties don't take Johannesburg seriously. And this is an economic hub of the continent, and it's being played with marbles, so to speak. And this is quite an unfortunate situation, including the fact that you've got 4 candidates now of mayor, and we don't know where the wind is going to blow.
Yeah, and we are talking about the city of gold, which is the capital city of the province called Gauteng, which contributes so much to this country's GDP in terms of economic activity. Joburg just has to run smoothly.
Absolutely. And if Joburg fails, the province will fail. And all of these plans that Panyaza Lesufi has to make Joburg a better, Gauteng a better province will fall flat on their face if the center of the economy is not functional. So it's quite clear, Praden, that the coalitions and the whole issue about this country being governed by coalitions has to be brought into big question mark. And that means that the citizens have to vote more decisively, because imagine that's a total part of jokes in the world.
Yeah.
If people don't even know who is your president because they last 3 months and they are replaced because they couldn't agree in the background, on coalition.
JJ.
So it's a terrible precedent.
Yeah, you know what bothers me as I'm listening to you, and you might have better insight than I do, is even if you're going to have a framework in place, first step is, will all parties buy into a new framework for governing coalitions in our country at local level, at provincial level, and at national level? Because these parties just are not able to see eye to eye on any matter.
That is a big question mark, Braden, but hopefully sense will prevail that they would also understand that the citizens cannot tolerate a situation as fluid as we see in Johannesburg on a national scale. It simply won't bode well for investments. This whole investment drive that we are on will all fall on its face. We're already being grey listed. We're already teetering on junk status. So everything points to the fact that if we do any more, gimmicks, because really what we are seeing in Johannesburg is political gimmicks. If we do that on a national level, we will not be taken seriously in the world. A framework is important in that while an election may not have a solid outcome that gives one party a total sort of sway to rule, in other words, get 50+1, once the coalition is in place, it must be considered to be the outcomes that must now govern the country for the next 5 years. We can't have a situation where a government can hardly plan because they don't know whether they'll be in place in 6 months. That simply won't bode well. If you think that we are in doldrums where the currency is concerned, where interest rates are concerned, just wait until there is that instability at national level. We will be in real chaos, and the people are going to suffer. Ordinary poor South Africans who are out of jobs, who are having to pay, through their noses, whether be it fuel or be it interest rates and so on.
Yeah, does it also speak to a lack of decisive leadership, JJ? I'm asking this because every party has their leader. As you correctly said, some people get into the mayoral office without having been elected by you and me and other voters when we went to the polls in 2021. Does this kind of setup now call for bold leadership to provide a direction that says basically stop your nonsense, stop fighting over positions, who's a mayor, who's a councillor, focus on delivering the services to the residents of Johannesburg, work together?
Absolutely. There is absolutely no question about the fact that we are in a crisis of leadership across society. It's not just only in government, even in business, because if we had a very decisive business leadership, by now they could have read the riot act long ago to government to say, you stop what you're doing. I'm not an expert in local government law, but what is happening in Johannesburg, I'm wondering whether it doesn't call for a fresh election, where we just simply say, you guys have failed in your current form. Let's all go to an election, a by-election, where we can try and, get a decisive victory for one or other party, rather than what we see as a circus right now. It's all about poor leadership. If you look at the crisis in Johannesburg and how we got here, was also because of poor leadership. Why is it that these parties, the coalition partners that were originally in power under the DA, why couldn't they find a way in which they made that coalition work? Why is it that we hear that this collapsed because of the arrogance of the DA leadership? Why is it that we hear that it collapsed because the DA would not accommodate the IFP, a party they have worked with in KZN over years? Why wouldn't they accommodate that kind of party? Why would they, take a posture that says rather the citizens suffer than we accommodate just one other party in the mayoral executive? So it all boils down to leadership. To say somebody, in these parties did not have a vision that would ensure that this kind of chaos right now is avoided by simply being able to reach out to each other. I mean, if we were able to have a government of national unity where there was an ANC on one side and the nationalists on the other, these parties who are, some of them even friends, why would they fail to put the citizens first? It's really a crisis of leadership that can only be solved by citizens going to the polls to decisively vote in a manner that would ensure that the citizens are placed at the center of governance.
JJ, thank you very much for your time. I know you're busy with your show coming up later tonight. As we conclude, is it okay for you to share with our viewers what are you going to be talking about tonight in Power to Truth at 8 o'clock?
We're out in Cape Town, as you said, Raden. We are in Khayelitsha tonight. I'm sure you know, reporting these things all the time, how many times you've had incidents in Khayelitsha of rampant crime, Braden. We decided to bring the community together. We decided to bring the Minister of Police as well as the MMC of Safety in Cape Town, and along with some community leaders, to talk about what can be done as a community effort to reduce the levels of crime in Khayelitsha. Obviously, the same story applies in many other townships, but tonight we are out in Khayelitsha as our first outreach of the year as Power to Truth.
Good luck with that. We'll all be watching, and take care. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon on Today. That's JJ Tabane. He's, of course, the host of Power to Truth that is live here on eNCA Monday, Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Tonight, they are in Khayelitsha, being joined by community members, the police minister, the MMC for Safety and Security. They're talking about the increase of violent crime in that township of Cape Town. But we've also been talking about the situation in Joburg, this chaos that's ongoing in the Johannesburg Council.